Well, hi, and welcome to my shop here on June 13th for, that's a good opening. I like that one. Well, hi, good morning. Thanks so much for joining me in my shop here. It's June 13th, and we're going to be working on that record player you see there. So that record player comes with the console that I was working on. The receiver for it yesterday. Today it's the record player. This is really here for the record player. There's some problems with the record player, and the owner told me what they were. I can't remember now, probably just slowing down, but I can't remember what he told me. So I have the record player plugged back into the receiver over here, just as it would be if it were in the console, and we're going to let it get its power right out of the receiver. There is no power cord. It's on these wires. The power is running. Okay, I think we're all set. So this is in the manual position. It's not finished though. Let's make sure it's finished. It's doing its thing. Oh, I'm gonna try to play a record. That's mysterious. Shouldn't be doing that. Okay. Just put it like this. So this may turn. We will see. We'll see what happens. Okay, so we're gonna. This is on. It should be off. This is in the off position now. Pretty sure this electrically interrupts the power to the motor, so it cannot turn no matter what the mechanism might be calling for. The stereo is currently off. We're going to leave it switched off with the on-off switch. I'm going to apply dim bulb power, which means I'm running power towards here through a couple of light bulbs. If you watched yesterday's video, you know what I'm doing. Now I'm going to flip this onto manual here and see what happens. Now, so the dim bulbs came on very bright at first because it turned the whole stereo on, which is what it's supposed to do. Just make sure the volume's down. Volume, volume, volume. Well, it seems to be spinning, but I can certainly hear it. I'm not supposed to be not supposed to be able to hear anything. I'm gonna throw a record on there. And what do we have for today? Oh, I'm very sorry about that. Okay, what do we have for today? We have Woodstock. Yeah, we'll pick some Woodstock songs. Now, all these songs are copyrighted, I'm sure. So when I play music here, I have to limit it to just a few seconds, or Mr. Copyright Police will come and get me. This is a heavily played record. Jefferson Airplane. That's the first song on it. What's on over here? Country Joe McDonald. I don't know that one. Let's try that. See what it is. So, okay, so this is so that's why this tried to play. The overarm is not settling low enough. See, as long as there's a record up here, the overarm can only come down to where it strikes the record. So it can only come down about this far, something like that. When there's no record, the overarm can drop low. When it drops low, it hits a mechanism behind there. It tells the record player there's no records to drop. So if you ask it to drop a record, it will discover there's no records, and it will just turn itself back off. Or if you have it playing auto, it'll play all the records till the last one's dropped. I don't know how many, who's doing this? Who's stacking their records? And after the last, see, yeah, this is definitely sticky. After the last one drops, now there's a lever back here. I really didn't show you. You can see the lever here. When the record drops, it's going to whack this thing over. And when it does, it's going to tell the record player it's a big record, because a small record won't hit that thing. If it's all working. Keep an eye on the platter. There we go. What do you do? Sounds good. Looks good. All looks good. Nice and slow. Looked and sounded perfect. I think if I turn it up, we'll hear it. Well, I gotta. So we're hearing it from here right now. I haven't got this switched onto phono. So phono is. It was. I can't remember. Turn it up a bit. We'll find out. Radio. Hey. Where are you, phono? Okay, I'm just gonna. Now, there's no way to lift this up except with your finger. Not the best way to do it. A lot of record players have a lever to lift it, but so let's just make sure this is switched to record player. Tape. So phono is the second one in. Second one in. Second one in. That should be phono. Again, doing this with your fingers not the best, but
Give me a U!
Okay, so I didn't hook up the ground wire here, so we need to connect this ground. We're going to hear that hum. Yeah, what's that spell? And I think a nice little screw would be helpful here, if I have one. Just a nice. How do you like that? That'll do it. Okay, we're going to stick this in here. So what this does is it connects the. Oh, you can't see what I'm doing here. The screw didn't work. So all I'm trying to do is connect this black wire back to the chassis here. And I'm trying to quickly find a suitable screw. Drive through there. So the idea is if the chassis is not connected to, if the record player deck, that's this part, is not connected to here, a little bit of a shock hazard might show up. But what really is going to happen is, you know, any electromagnetic interference from, and there's tons of it in our houses, it's going to get on this platter, and the platter's like an antenna. And if this is going with some kind of signal, it's going to show up in the sound signal coming over here. So by tying these two chassis together, there cannot be any difference in voltage. They're together. No difference. No hear it. Okay. So I got the ground on. Means I can turn it up a little louder. Let's hear this part again. Oh.
Give me a U! Give me a K! What's that spell?
Lots of distortion, but they could be recorded with distortion. There's a guy screaming in a microphone right now. So let's hear a better. This is actually a bad record because it's a lousy recording.
Vietnam. Come on, fathers, don't hesitate.
Okay, so I don't hear. Yeah, Vietnam. I don't hear any. You know, I'm a Canadian kid, right? And when I was a young teenager, 14, 15, I was scared I was going to have to go to the Vietnam War from Canada. I figured sooner or later Canada would get dragged into it, and I'd get sent off like so many young American young men, young boys, really being sent off to go fight some war somewhere for no reason, no discernible reason.
Like resistance, I know. And he said it last night, said he.
I hope this doesn't get knocked off by this will. This will. So I can't let the music go. But maybe all that talk may not be copyrighted. That was kind of neat, eh? A little blast of the past. I remember when Woodstock happened, I was so disappointed. I was too young. I was way too young. I was like 12 or something. But so all those older kids, wow. Yeah. Woodstock. I haven't found anything wrong yet, so let's let this guy try and shut himself off. Again, if there's music here, I'm going to have to keep the volume down. I'm pretty sure there is music here. Try and get right in towards the end. This may set it off too. Okay. You really got to turn up the volume very high to get any sound out of it. Here we go. My adoring fans. It's really annoying. Well, I shouldn't have done that.
Oh, Sparrow, sing a song, don't be long.
Throw me with your arrow, was it? I know what the next line is. This didn't go down all the way. That's the problem. A little lubrication in here and problem solved. But chances are the hole underneath needs to be re-lubricated. Even though it all appears to be working well, it's going to require some lubrication. So we're going to take a look at the situation underneath it now that we've kind of experimented with it here. So a smart thing to do would be to switch it off. Let's see if the stereo goes off as it should. Wait a minute, we're going to let the machine do it here. So you can keep an eye on the dim bulb. Yeah, so everything's running with low voltage right now. 85 volts, so you wouldn't even expect this to run at the correct speed necessarily. Okay, so we want this to attempt to turn off on its own. I'm just going to trigger it again. When it does, that light should go out over there. There we are. So basically all the operations work. This is the easiest, this is the most functional thing I've ever had in my shop to fix, for sure. Usually everything is shot, dead, stuck, glued. Not this time. Okay, let me pull out the, cut the power off here. And we're going to want to go underneath and take a look at the situation. Goodbye, Woodstock. See you next time. So we'll eventually pop this platter off, but for now, that locks in there good. We're going to take a look underneath here. Now, the camera is not doing it justice. This is covered in dry lubrication all over the place. And there are funny tracks on here. So you can see the stuff. Yeah, you can see these lines and tracks. Now those are either scratches, and somehow they've acquired whatever it is they've acquired here. Some kind of material. Is it oil wandering over, or I don't know what it is. Some kind of corrosion product on the scratches. I don't know. But for sure, like this should be nice. Oh, there's nothing here. Should be nice lubrication. There's nothing. Okay, let's take a closer look at it. I'm going to flip it right upside down here. And we're going to use the other camera to take a closer look at it. Okay, other camera. There you go. Get your bearings on that camera shot. So maybe we'll start with following the power cord here. It comes in. This is the on-off switch, activated by this lever here probably. It's switched on and off, so wait a minute, this is the audio. This is the audio side of things here, Jim. Yeah, that's not the switch. the audio switch. So this may have a switch in it that'll switch the audio off while the mechanism is operating. Some record players do that, some don't. So it's some kind of switch arrangement there, so that's what it has to be, really. Okay, follow the power. Power. So here's the power switch. Again, there should be a lever coming in here somewhere. Where are you? I don't see any lever coming over there. Is that not the switch? Well, so usually, the way it works is the lever here, the on-off lever, is usually pushing some kind of arm. Oh, look at how dry all this is. Wow, it's amazing this worked with literally sticky everywhere. Wow. It's really surprising that it worked. Sorry about the camera shot there, I'm not paying attention. Well, she's dry as a bone with all this weird stuff on it. I can get that stuff off there. So here's a really critical area here where this ramp is. So this whole piece here moves back and forth, dragging this ramp over top the spring-loaded piece. The spring-loaded piece is going to push, I can't show it, it's going to push the tone arm up and down. And so there's a high friction contact here where this spring-loaded piece is bumping in or rubbing on the bottom of this. It should have lubrication in it. Dry as a bone. Now there are some parts that are supposed to be dry as a bone. This might be one of them here. Maybe it's this one. This one, yeah. So see, this lever comes right up towards the center area here. So a lever like this usually is not lubricated. It's loose, so it has some play in it. And it can be pushed by the lightest touch, which is the trick. The lightest touch will push it. Look at that light touch. And what light touch is pushing it? Coming from the tone arm, as the tone arm gets closer to the center of the record, the mechanism, the lever, begins to push on this bar. And all that's pushing the bar in is the tone arm, and all that's pushing the tone arm is the groove in the needle. Now my eye just caught something weird. Is that a, where'd it go? Where'd it go? I was looking here. I saw it would look like a crack in a... Well, I can't spot it now. Okay, won't worry about it. I'm sure it wasn't a crack. It was probably just some kind of dirt looking like a crack. Look at that. It's all supposed to move kind of independently here. Oh, terrible. So I think what I got to do is start with solvent and try to get rid of as much of this stuff on here as possible. A lot of it is out, it's out in the field, so to speak. It doesn't really matter what's going on the top of this plate. What matters is what's going on right in these contact and slide areas. You don't have to clean the whole thing, just the parts that are critical. Is that a calibration? With some kind of lever? Well, I've never noticed anything like that before. This must be... So this is about the speed. Well, that's really interesting. This is about the speed that the record player is turning at. as you turn the speed control, this thing will do this kind of thing. And when you turn the control, what you're feeling is all this mechanism here. And you see how it's raising this piece up and down? Down, up, up, up. Well, I can't really show you what it's really doing in the record player. Well, maybe I can actually. You're going to see a wheel in here. It may be hard for you to recognize having never seen them, but there's a wheel in there. Basically a rubber tire. I'm going to change the speed. And you see it changing its height. Up, down, down, down. You'll see eventually what exactly that's doing to affect the speed. So another thing we have here, we have a fairly old style motor. It's kind of out in the open here. It's not your usual motor. Most of these guys have a lower bearing that can be removed. So this is the bearing cap. There's going to be some oil or lubrication in there if you're lucky, but you want to bet it's still there. Most of these you remove 2 screws, probably these 2 nuts here, and then the whole thing just lifts off and is built in such a way that when you put it back together it's all aligned properly. You don't have to worry about that self-centering bearing. I'm trying to read what it says on there. Viking. I think it says Viking. No, it wouldn't say Viking. Don't know what it says. Number 2. Is that what those nuts really do? If I undo those, are they just going to release the brackets holding the wires, or is it going to actually lift this whole bearing up? We should try this, because if we can relubricate the bearing, that's a good thing to do on these old players. The record player's upside down right now. Normally this is at the bottom, and the motor rotor weight is on this bearing. The upper bearing is different. It's just a shaft sleeve sort of thing. Well, let's try taking those off, because in the worst case the plate doesn't come off, like the bearing doesn't come off. So what? I just put the nuts back on. Why don't we do that right off the bat here? That's the first step. Loosen this other one. And we'll find out. It's not very loose yet. Where's my little nut cup? Here it is. Yes, you need a nut cup if you're going to do this work. There we go. Okay, bearing off. Well, let me pull these wires out of the way. Bearing going to come off. Oh boy, doesn't want to come off. Sticky. There it goes. Oh, a little ball bearing fell out. So I'm going to leave the ball bearing sitting right there right now. So you see the little brass ring there. This is on a gimbally sort of arrangement. This one's stuck. It's probably stuck in a perfectly fine position, because that's the idea, is that this thing will find its place, find its angle. So it still moves. It's a little tight. Like I say, the idea is you put this together and this just moves once and it sits in a good spot. The ball bearing that fell out, it's right here. Whoa! It fell into a hole there. That sits right up in here and sits touching the top of this. So the top of this, remember this is upside down now, right? So the weight of this guy is bearing on the ball bearing at a single tiny little point, and then the ball bearing itself is sitting in here. you know, it would be probably, you know, somewhat in contact with the sides and that. So I don't think you want the ball bearing to turn. You just want this point contact right here. And then this is turning, but the ball bearing probably not. How much lubrication do you need in there? The shaft can be rubbing up on the side of this. So we do need some lubrication in there. She's just as dry as can be. And what kind of lubrication? Oh, son of a gun. Okay, enough of that. Let me fix this. There. Almost sent myself flying there. The kind of lubrication we want to use is a light oil. I don't think you want to put grease in there. Remember, this thing's upside down. The oil will sit in it. Just looking for my oil here. So typically people have, you know, and really, I mean, this isn't going to the moon. We're not going to depend on its operation for the next 20 years. So if you use the wrong oil, it's not the end of the world. A lot of people have this kind of oil in their home, 3-in-1. Lubricates, cleans, and prevents rust. I guess that's the 3. Danger, poison. Poison? I never thought this oil was poison. There's another one, 3-in-1. But this one says motor oil. This is what you want, because this will be synthetic. Oh my gosh, made by the WD-40 company. It's WD-40 in another container. So now we're going to put a, maybe this is going to work to my advantage. It's going to hold the ball in here when I put it back together. So it's going to put one drop, which is already too much. Oh my gosh. Did I get some in there in the end? Holy smokes. Down, there we go. That's a lot of oil. You don't need piles and piles of oil. You need I need a little. Okay, just clean up some of the excess here. Good enough. Now I got it around in the gimbal area too, to kind of loosen that up a little bit. Okay, now how do we get the ball in there without losing it? How do I even pick it up? Oh, I just shoved it down inside the motor. No, it went right. Oh no, it went right down that hole. I couldn't believe it. I thought it was sitting on top of that hole. It's down inside there. I'm gonna get it. Oh. Okay, didn't figure on that. That's a problem. That's a problem. This rotor doesn't come right out, does it? No, it's not gonna come right out. Oh my gosh, how am I gonna get that out of there? Holy smokes! Will it fall out? If I just turn everything upside down, it will drop right out. No, it's not going to drop out of that greasy cookie. Stuff. Does it go right through? Let me push down through another hole and see if it goes right through. No, it doesn't. Oh, yes, it does. Push it right through and have it fall out and just try to catch it when it rolls around who knows where. Try to take it out with a magnet. Hey, let's try that. Okay, there's a little magnetic trick here. Need a strong magnet. Is it magnetic? Is a ball bearing? Ball bearings are stainless steel, aren't they? They aren't even magnetic. What are the chances I can lift it out with this? Pretty much nil. Yeah, it's not going to work. There's not going to be enough magnetic pull on it. If I rotate this thing, I'll lose track of which hole it's in. Push it right through. Push it right through, you run the risk of losing it completely somewhere in here, in this mechanism here. Not going to go through. Push it up from the other way, I can't get at it. You cannot get at it. What a situation. What if I soak it with solvent and then flip it over and try to make it fall out? Jeepers creepers. A jackpot! Yeah! You never know where the jackpots are hidden. Okay, we'll try the solvent then. If I can get enough solvent in there, maybe it'll just drop out when I turn it over. Those are really going to blast in there. I guess these are oily just because they're near the motor or something. Flip it over. It comes out. It's going to hit the bench here. Everybody, okay, I need everybody watching. Everybody watching now. I don't think it's going to come out. I have to bang it out or something. Here we go. Something's going to fall out of here sooner or later. Okay, can we tap it out? Did it move at all? Of course, it hasn't moved in the least. Oh man, what a situation. Holy smokes. Oh my god, solve this. Vacuum it out. Suck it out of there. Poke it out. Turn it upside down and poke at it until it drops out. Got solvent in there. That's probably effective. You need a poker tool. There we are. Is that going to poke in there? Oh yeah. Okay, so I gotta make sure I'm poking in the right one now. Okay, so that's the farthest that way. When I flip this over, it will be the farthest this way. I've unplugged the power completely, so there's no chance of any power accident happening here. So now it should be the hole at the front. Who can see? Who can see? So I need this elevated way up in the sky here for me to see up under it. I have to stop and come up with some scheme here to do that. What a situation. Okay, first attempt here. Boy, things are just getting crazier and crazier in my shop. I'm going to try to reach up inside this as a bird cage. This is a bird feeder to keep the squirrels away from the bird feeder. I'm going to try to reach up in there and poke and hope the thing drops out. And I can find it after it drops out. That's another big hope. Is this going to work? Well, that's my first attempt. You know, first idea. Probably not. And do I really know which one to even poke in? Can I really get my hand even up there? This is crazy. Okay, now if it falls out, is that the right one? There's 3 holes here, right? Not that one. It's got to be the one here. Feel a little ball in it. It's not going to fall out. Probably jamming it in there tighter and tighter all the time. Okay, didn't give this much hope, but it's worth a try. Another thing I can do is heat this thing up to the point where the I'm assuming what's holding it in is a little bit of old lubrication and dirt. Heat it up to the point where that is so thin it just drops out. What about blasting it with more solvent and just try to kind of wash it out? I like that idea. Wash it out. This is just the dumbest situation I think I've ever gotten myself into with a with one of these. You know, it's on a rotating piece, and it just rotated it out of reach. Rotate back. Okay. Oh my gosh. So, you know, I can't even abandon this and just, you know, find another ball bearing, because this is going to, like, these motor rotors are very carefully balanced. There's no room for additional ball bearing off to the side here. Oh my gosh. Okay, well, this is a really stupid situation I'm in now. It'd be great if I could blast it down from the top and boom, blow it out. If I could get the solvent thing into the top, but you know, there's really a good look at it here anyway. I'm probably going to have to disassemble this motor completely. Now, how would that even help? How would it even help if I disassembled this motor? Because in the end, I'd still have a ball bearing stuck in that hole. Only if I can get access to the back of it to push it out. So you'd probably have to remove this. It's probably a bearing bracket here, which is really never intended to be removed. The motor is bolted to this plate, and this plate is rubber mounted to the deck with 3 beautiful looking grommets, by the way. Often in these record players, these grommets are shot and the motor's not in the right place anymore. That causes speed problems. But that's not the situation here at all. This is really in good shape, this whole thing, except somebody stuck a ball bearing inside the motor where it shouldn't be. That's the problem. Good thing they brought it here so I can fix that. Yeah, like what I'm left with now in my bag of tricks is silence, is heat. Heat this thing up to the point where the lubricant just drops it out. Just becomes so thin it just falls out. How am I going to heat this? Is a huge thing to heat up, to try to get heat to where, well, actually it's not this part, it's right in the rotor. Get the rotor out. Now what's holding the rotor in? So a little hard to see, but up in there is a brass fitting on the rotor shaft. There's no way it can drop. I think it can go through this plate. Well, maybe what we need to do is we'll leave the motor alone. Just leave it alone, Jim, and we'll deal with taking the platter off. And maybe while we're doing all this, the ball will fall out, and you know, it'll be a happy day. Okay, so to do that, now look what I've done. I've caged my tools and stuff. Can't get at them. Let's take the record player down from up high here. Okay, take away our cage. Didn't quite work. Okay. Forgetting that it's basically a wrecked record player at the moment, we'll continue working on it here. I just put it into its mechanism. There we are. Okay, there's a little E-washer here I've got to get off. These you cannot take off. Some of them are on with little, yeah, this one's on with tape or something like that, or glue even. Well, I'll let it go up. Let it go up under there. What the heck? It's going up under the rubber mat. Not so good either. Get out of there. There we go. I can recover it from out of here later. Now, get this off. Some of these come right off. Whoosh. Others, oh boy. Let's see. Right off. Unbelievable. So all indications there that this record player is actually in really good condition. Record player, receiver, the whole thing. It's in surprisingly good condition, even though there's no lubrication. This has been, look at it, it's full of debris, little bits of dirt. Actually, debris maybe a little too much, but something's been going on that's fallen in there. So look inside here. This is where this rubber tire runs on the inside track there. Just looking at it, make sure it's clean and looks just fine. It's a fairly heavy platter. That's to give some momentum, helps the mechanism push past sticking points, and also dampens any variation in speed, like a flywheel. Let's take a look at the motor situation here. So it would look like the motor is quite... Yeah, stop talking. So this brass fitting has the... come down. Has the different levels on it, different diameters to drive the wheel at different speeds, and then the wheel is rubbing against the inside of the platter and turning the platter. That's the whole deal. This is going up and down with the speed adjustment. Now I'll move the speed adjustment. Watch this go up and down. Oh, hey, this is going up and down. That's right, the wheel is going up and down. Different players do different things. Sometimes the wheel moves, sometimes the motor moves. This one, most commonly, it's this, the wheel. The proper name for this wheel is an intermediate wheel because it's intermediate between the motor and the platter. But a lot of people call that the idler, but I don't know why. There's nothing idle about it. Another important thing to see, with the platter off, this doesn't... Yeah. Blow that COVID out. This doesn't quite ride in its usual position because the platter's not pushing it. So this is being sucked by this spring in between this and the platter. It may not look quite like it, but see, the pull is on this shaft between here and the edge of the platter. So it's pulling the wheel, wedging it between the platter wall and this. That's the purpose of this spring. This spring can get weak. It can get weak, not be strong enough. Notice right now, the spring is relaxed. This whole thing's just sitting over here. And you see the set is turned off. Now watch, I'm going to turn it to manual. Watch what happens over here as I do that. So now it's pulled the wheel into place with some spring tension. Of course, the platter's not here, but this would be over a little bit further, like that. And the deal here is, if you leave your record player like this, this stays in contact with the wheel under the tension of the spring. Let your clock run a few months into the future, you'll have a divot in this wheel. You have a bump in the wheel. And every time it goes around, thump, 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 thump. And that's a tough one to fix. You always want these things to be off. When they're off, this relaxes. The lever moves over and relaxes. This is no longer pulled up against the thing here, capstan. And I think you can call that a capstan. And it can sit like that for months and years and forever. Never ever develop a divot in here. That's the deal. Always, always turn them off. Never leave them in some setting up here. Now, forgetting about the motor again for a while. So under here, this is a very important piece. This is the brain. This is the brain of the record player that makes this thing come over the right distance, set down, and all this stuff. The up and down part is that ramp I showed you at the back here that has to be lubricated. But the back and forth movement is controlled by this track, this raceway right in here. So this thing will rotate once, and there's a thing caught in the track underneath. I'll show you in a couple of minutes. And that thing is mechanically connected to the arm. The interesting thing is when the record player gets to this rest stage, the mechanism that's been hooked up to the arm lets go of the arm. So the arm is completely free once the mechanism's done with it. Pretty neat, eh? This piece here, this is called the velocity sensor. This is this is how the record player realizes it's reached the end of the record. You know, I would have thought when I was a kid, I always thought this, it has to do with the position of the record player tone arm. Like when it gets finally close enough, it must catch a trigger or something like that. It's sort of like that, but not quite, because you see, not all records are the same. So there is no magic spot where this should lift up. Different records come to different places where they end. So how in heaven's name are they going to make this thing know it's at the end of the record? So the first idea, done back in the 20s and abandoned sometime after it, is to cause the tone arm to go in the wrong direction. So all the way across the record it's going like this. Fine. When it gets into the final groove, you know, where they have that internal groove, most records, modern records, it just goes further in and stops. But on the oldest records, it goes back and forth like this. And when it goes this way, the record player can pick it up. There's some kind of pawl or something that's catching. They can tell it's gone the wrong way, time to pick up, and away she goes. That's the old record style. But these ones rely on something that I think most people don't realize. I never realized it. But when you look at the record, and you see how close these grooves are. I mean, as the record goes around, the tone arm is barely moving, right? You can't even see it move inward. But when it gets to here, you can certainly see it move inward because the track is very fast. It pulls it inward. It's the speed of the movement of the arm inward that triggers the pickup. The speed. That's why it's called a velocity sensor. This is called a velocity sensor system. Now, it doesn't detect the speed of the tone arm directly. There's no computer in here, there's no sensors, there's really not much of anything. And to explain this mechanism is a little tricky. See this part down here? See the little hook piece right here? Can you see that? Little piece standing up here. So, as the record player, I gotta get the record player. So Platter is going around. Can you see that this geared wheel has gears missing in there? There's no gears right in that spot. This is the rest spot where the record player plays the record. And you see the gears here, which engage with the gears here, but they don't engage in the rest spot. So this thing will, once you get this to connect to this, it'll be driven once around until the rest spot gets back here, then it stops. And that's the one cycle to operate the tone arm mechanism in that. You see on here, this little piece here, this little piece you might not even think about. Can you kind of see it there? Right there. That piece is up high. It's up high. This is up high. They're going to connect. They're going to collide at some point. This Platter's going around this way. That little thing is coming around this way. And it's going to hit that arm, this piece right here, and it's going to push this like that. And from there, boom, this is going to go all the way around. Here we go. I'm going to do it now with my hand. It's going to lift, swing it over, drop it down, and then click into that spot. And there it's done again. There you go. That's how they do it. How do they do this though? So this is a weird arrangement in which it's being pushed forward at the slow speed of the tone arm while the tone arm's playing the record. It actually only happens in the last third of the record. This gets pushed forward a little bit. But as that thing, the platter's turning, as that piece comes around on the platter, it kicks this back. It goes, no, I don't want you yet. As long as this doesn't move forward too much in one cycle, that little piece will kick it back. Kick it back. Kick it back. But what happens? And this piece is being brought forward by the tone arm. We can see this. We can see this. Watch. No, you can't see it. You can't see it with my hand there, that's for sure. Hey, watch. See it go forward? I can't feel that on this tone arm. Now the idea is, as this goes forward, it's supposed to carry this forward. So as long as it goes slow, and maybe I'm not explaining this 100%, okay, but 80% is going to get you an understanding here, even if I don't have it quite 100%. So, but the thing is, if the tone arm moves fast, like it does when it gets in the middle of the record, this thing will travel a greater distance in the one revolution, and instead of being kicked off because of the angle of the piece there, it will move far enough that that piece that's coming around will strike it, kapowie, and start the mechanism. And there I am stuck again. Can I go back? Yeah. The thing about these pieces is they have to be, they should be unlubricated, and they should be just free to move like that. These feel great. I don't think there's any problem here. Sometimes people have lubricated these, or for one reason or another they become sticky, sometimes really sticky in the shaft here. All this stuff has to be loosened up, because this mechanism has to be operated by the tone arm. By literally the needle in the groove is where the push is. The needle in the groove pushed on this. Can you believe it? That's how they make it. Again, you put lubrication in these things, they become harder to push because the lubrication has some surface. There's an effect there, some kind of surface grippy thing. So you don't go spraying lubrication everywhere. This area, no. And if it is all gummed up, you got to take this apart, use solvent to clean it off. Let's pick this up now. Because normally in these record players, this piece can be frozen solid, can be stuck on the shaft, various ways it can get stuck. This piece is another piece that can be very hard to get off. Not the E-clip, this whole piece. And this record player, I'm going to bet, well, I can just lift it up. Let's see. Look at that. Wow. Okay, so in some record players, this is a 20-minute operation to get this off. When you're working on this to get it off, if this is frozen to this, and as you turn this, and you got a lot of leverage here, you start turning this. You don't want this to turn. This is fixed in place with a rivet or some way they fixed it to the deck. And you can get it loose by doing this. Not the end of the world, but you don't want it to happen. One of the ways to test the velocity sensor, if it does that, you're home free. And it does. There we go. What's underneath? So there's the track. Do you see any oil in it? Any grease, any lubrication at all? Nothing. Maybe a little tiny bit right in here. Now we'll look at this. So this is the piece that travels in the groove here, in the raceway. This piece, it has a rotating piece. Oh, look at that, it rotates. No wonder this record player worked. It's working with all of its lubrication gone. I've never seen one in this kind of condition that works so well. Wow. Usually these are frozen solid. It is a little sticky in there, you know, if I drive it down. Okay, so the simple matter of throwing some oil in here. You could use WD-40 if you like. I'm going to use just an oil here. 1 drop. There we go. Now inside the raceway, I got to put some grease in there, and I've got for that, the grease I use is a silicone grease. That's what I use. Ultra Slick. Not trying to promote it as a product, just as a kind of material. Get some grease here. You can imagine if this was sticking and the grease was all turned into glue inside here, that this is where your stickiness would be. Some stickiness anyway. There's stickiness and drag all over the place in these systems. They can add up to enough to cause problems. Like, for instance, the mechanism tries to operate, but it can't make it. Why can't it make it? Because of friction in the system working against the motor, and probably drive slippage, probably from this wheel, which we'll talk about and get into in a little bit. So you don't want to put a huge amount of grease in here. It's not filled or anything like that. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Almost put grease everywhere. Very good. Again, no lubrication on this. Beautiful. Beautiful. It's probably the case that most consoles live their lives in protected areas in people's homes, even if they're not operated. So, is it too surprising to find something? How old is this guy? This was what, 63? Where are we now? 2021? It's 60 years old. Oh my gosh, this thing's 60 years old? No, I did something wrong, didn't I there? Now getting this to settle down, well, once again, easy as can be in this record player. But you got to get that the part that's driving, that part that's running in here, into here. And that can be a bit of a challenge, but this one, my gosh, it just fell together. Just want to get some of this grease off my hands here. Okay, we'll put the E-clip back on. Now these E-clips, these have a way of flying to who knows where, never to be found again. There are tools for putting these on. I use a technique here, very carefully balancing this pliers so it's right in the middle of everything. Because if you miss, then you're going to go try to find that thing somewhere. Who knows where it would be. This should really be in the stop part, but we won't worry about it. It's not quite there. I think that's still okay. That's better. Oop. That's better. Maybe it's because this is... Snap it down. Okay, and now we're going to do the drive wheel here. The intermediate wheel. So first of all, is there anything grossly wrong with it? No. We're going to do a little test of how rubbery it is. So I'm just going to apply pressure to the edge here and watch as I apply pressure how far in the screwdriver goes. Not cutting anything, just doesn't go in at all. Not going in at all. Now, these things develop a hard surface here. Certainly is what it feels like. And they lose their traction. The hard surface is only, a fraction of a millimeter thick. That's the key to fixing these things. So now I'm going to push it up against the capstan too, and look. So you can see the general rubber is bending. It's flexible, but right on the outer edge. Now, can you also see there appears to be a line here? Can you see that in the camera? Yeah, you can. Yeah, wonder what that is. I don't know what that is. Dirt on there. I don't know what it is. I was going to make a comment. That wasn't going to be true. Now I'm going to pop this E-ring off here. put it in a special nut bucket over here. Take this guy off. I don't really want to get oil on the outside, but I'm not going to worry too much about it. I'm going to flip it off. There we go. So now we want to look right at this edge and decide if this edge is shiny or dull. And that looks pretty dull. So if it were really shiny, then it would have to be ground off. This doesn't look that bad, actually. I'm going to check it with my own fingernail. Actually, no, it's quite shiny. Well, it's from my angle. Yeah, I think, yeah, it is shiny. See there? That's probably not quite the driving surface. Or maybe that is the driving surface, and this dull area actually is not getting worked at all. Maybe it's all up on this shiny surface here. Loss of traction through here is, I think, the primary reason why most of these record players start stalling when they're supposed to lift and return. And what's actually happening is this just starts skidding. It's skidding over top of this, or skidding on the inside of the rim, because the rim is geared to the wheel, and the wheel is trying to do its job, and this poor platter is trying to push it, and it's too much. This little wheel skidding on the inside is not enough. You can strengthen up the spring rather, to overcome this by driving it in harder into the capstan and the thing. That's one way around this. The other way is to try to get this surface. Now I can really see the shine on it. Yeah, look at that. It's like shiny on half and dull on the other. We can sort of get a feel for its traction too, by getting it to do its job. Here. So I'm dragging it over. You can't see what I'm doing. I'm dragging it over and feeling how much grip there is and what it feels like. So it's definitely gripping. Definitely gripping. Again, this is really amazing what kind of condition this record player's in. So the shiny area, where is that shiny area? It's kind of on the upper surface. So if I tip it this way, I can drag it on the shiny. So there I can drag it easily on the shiny. Very easily. On the rubbery, you know, I can't really tell much difference. Actually, when I get it right flat, I got maximum contact then. That's really pretty good. It doesn't want to drag. I'm debating whether I should treat the surface here or not. That's what's going on in my head. No harm can come to this from treating it, so I'm going to give it the treatment. Okay, it'll take me a couple minutes to set things up for that. Okay, so to do this, first I have to put a temporary drive shaft on this, just out of a screw and a nut. It's going to go in. It's got a beveled top here. This would be better. Yep, that's going to do it. It's going to be long enough to protrude through it. Hey, how about a COVID update from Ontario and Canada here? My last time I spoke about this on a video was a couple weeks ago, and you would have heard panic in my voice, more or less, that, oh my gosh, we're just not getting this thing under control, it's going up, it's going up. Maybe that was 3 weeks ago. Well, it's going down, down, down now, and the politicians have seen fit to begin relaxing some of the controls. And so, for instance, people can eat in patios at restaurants and stuff like that. I think the feeling in the population is that it's all coming to an end, and I think that's a false feeling right now. You shouldn't have that feeling. Maybe it is, but you shouldn't feel that way right now. The authorities, the medical authorities, seem anxious about what the politicians are doing. I guess that's kind of always the case. The population itself is becoming bifurcated between those who are fearless and those who are still fearing. So, for instance, if you've had 2 shots of vaccine, like me, and it's been 2 weeks. It's been about 2 weeks for me, something like that. Then the chances of me becoming sick and ending up in the hospital is very, very, very low. Very low. Chances of me becoming sick are very high. You know, the vaccine doesn't stop you from being sick. The virus doesn't know who has the vaccine. It doesn't fly around going, oh, they got a vaccine, not going there. The virus doesn't know anything about the vaccine until it's in your cell and operating. Well, maybe not in your cell, until it's in your body anyway. So even with the vaccine, you still get the illness. You just don't get the symptoms. And my question would be, can you pass it on? I don't know if people know exactly the answer to this, and I think it's all gray, because it depends on so many things. You know, how much you've had 2 shots, so now you have the virus. How much are you emitting? Are you emitting any? I don't know. But the idea that it's all over with, I think, is a real mistake. My wife has had 1 shot. Oddly enough, her scheduled 2nd shot isn't until late August, but I'll bet you it'll be advanced. Lots and lots of vaccine coming into Canada right now, and the uptake is really high here, maybe even highest in the world. I don't know, but the uptake is really high. So to my fellow Canadians, if you're a Canadian and you're watching this, hey, let's all pat ourselves on the back for being good, compliant citizens, sensible, smart people. Thank you, Canada. Okay, now we're going to get on with this. So, here we go. Sandpaper. Holding it. Don't hold it like that. Holding it nice and level. Watching what comes on the sandpaper. Gotta watch what comes on the sandpaper. Which way is it spinning? Okay, so it should throw this stuff out here, I think. I don't know. There we go. Don't take too much off. Yeah, I'm having trouble with this drill. Black and Decker. 1 year old. Isn't that something? Eh? Let's turn it a bit. Okay, so we ground off a fair bit anyway. We got it done before this guy gave up the ghost. You see, the whole thing is nice and gray now. Isn't that beautiful? The diameter of this is unimportant. Well, in an extreme case, yes, it is. But whether it's 2 millimeters bigger or smaller makes no difference on the speed of operation of the record player. So you could grind quite a bit off there. Absolutely no concern that it's going to change the speed of the record player. So now we're going to take this off. So this will have made a significant difference in the strength of the traction. Didn't seem to be a problem when I tested it, but time is marching, and just because it's okay now doesn't mean I mean, these all eventually are going to end up needing this kind of treatment. You don't need to replace these. In most cases, not at all. Just grind them. There we go. Now, let's see if I can put it back together without losing a ball bearing or something silly like that. Now, there's often, I didn't mention this, there's often washers sitting here. Whoops, up here now. There's often washers sitting down here. You can see one there. There's a washer there, and they stick. Sometimes you lift this up, the washer comes up, and then you don't even see it. It drops off, and it's gone. That little bit of difference, that can make a difference. That can make a difference. The height of this is really critical, of course, because it has to hit this in the right spot, not too high, not too low. Let's put the clip on. If this one goes flying, you may not even hear where it lands. The thing about this is I have a whole collection of these things, so if I do lose one, it's not the end of the world for me. If you're doing this with your own record player, see, ooh, that was bad. I wouldn't recommend attempting to put this on this way. You just figure it out for yourself. Got it. The last moment there, I thought it was going to go flying, but it didn't. Okay, so we're back to the motor doesn't have a ball bearing, doesn't have a lower bearing. It lost its ball bearing. Is there anything else to do up here? So there is. I put this on a little quick. Down here is a set of ball bearings. Look at that. I can see there's no oil in there, no grease at all. So I got this on just a little too quick. I'm going to pop it off again. Try to pop it off again. There we go. I'll just set this over here. So the way these are done, there's a top washer. There's a ball bearing set. There's a bottom washer. And then there's some kind of rubber. There's an O-ring in this one. There's an attempt to try to isolate as much of the platter from the rest of the record player as possible. Because the needle is running on the record is sitting on the platter. If you whack the platter, the needle will hear it. If you shake the platter, rumble the platter, do anything to the platter, the needle will hear it. So they're trying and everything they can do to isolate away the motor noise and everything from it. So we can put this lower one back on. And if you're like me, the first couple of times I did this, I went, oh my god, does this go this way or does it go this way? Which way does it go? Well, it goes this way. It's a cup. It's a cup of grease. So it goes this way. And where's the grease? There's a little tiny bit there. See, it's on my fingers. There's nothing left. How did this record player ever work? Did they never lubricate it in the first place? Okay, I'm going to load up the grease here. This really is an extraordinary record player in the fact that it's in the condition it's in and it works perfectly, or seems to work perfectly. Cup up, down, down. There we go. Okay. The other washer's here. Just make sure there's no debris on it. Lovely. Down you go. So if you've never really looked at how one of these work, let's take a look. So you see this top piece. As the record comes down, this piece here pushes the record over. So in the end, it's really not, the hole is really not centered on the center of the shaft. It's now pushed over because of this piece right up here. This piece which floats up. That causes the record then to sit on this ledge here. It can't go off. You can't knock it off because this piece is keeping it from doing that. Let's see this lower piece now, which is also lined up. The lowest record is being held over by this lower piece. Underneath, when the mechanism goes around, when this guy goes around, I forgot to put that back on. This piece moves like this. And you see that it comes out here. It basically carries the center of the record over until it lines up with the general shaft, and down it goes. Meanwhile, the record up above is still stuck on this piece. It's still stuck over. It can't go down. And this pops back. Tone arm, or the overarm, this is called the overarm, is sitting here on top of the records. That's not even, haven't lubricated it yet. You can see the bottom of this lining up with the top of this ledge here. So as long as there's a record there, it can't go below that. But when the record's gone, down it goes. See, now you can see it's pretty clearly lower than this. No record can be here. Message sent. Mechanical message sent. Let's hit this with a little bit of lubrication right now. I'm going to put a little bit of grease on it, I think. It's as high as it goes. Just a little bit. Work that in. So these arms can be kind of wrecked up, if you like, by how you handle them manually. Still not very good, is it? Like, it should just drop. Feels like I don't know what that is. Okay, let's give it the next blast here. Would use WD-40, but I have this right in my hand here. See, right in my hand. Well, now we know this is made by WD-40 company. So, and what is WD-40? Anyway, oil and solvents, special mix of oil and solvents. Still doesn't want to drop. It's got to drop. So here's the thing, if you lift this up out here, you're putting a huge leverage and twist or bend on this when trying to lift it. And you have to hit it really hard to get it to go up. You want to lift back here. This is where you lift it. Always lift back here. This thing's really in trouble. It feels like what's happened is the original lubrication has dried up in there and become a sticky surface. So I've stuck all that oil in there and whatnot. That will loosen it up slowly. What I really should have done was probably shoot some something like alcohol down there first. It's getting looser. Still binding. Dropping through parts of it now. So WD-40 would be good here because WD-40 has solvents in it that evaporate very quickly from the WD-40. And get this excess stuff off of here. Well, let's try it. Excess stuff is going to end up kind of spilled underneath, but dripping out underneath. Don't worry about that right now. It can't stay up like that. It's got to drop. Maybe this is another piece that's better off not lubricated. I can just feel that there's some kind of gum in there when I'm pushing against it. Maybe clean it out that way. Come on, man. No, because of this hanging out here, there's quite a force twisting it this way. And it's causing the front edge to push hard against the shaft in the sleeve down this front edge. And I suppose the back lower down is also binding. What else could it be? It feels terrible. Is this plastic? You know, maybe this is plastic. No. And that feels like plastic. This whole piece here. So that might just be a permanent problem then. As the last record dropped, this should have fallen, but it's not falling. It's getting a little better though. Okay, so maybe time will help this out a little bit. That's what I'm hoping will make that ball bearing fall out of the mold. Time, just time. I employ time. Son of a gun. It's better, but it's not doing its job. In fact, it would sit up here, the records would be falling. It's not even holding the records. The records will tilt. Yeah, if you don't have an overarm, they put records on here, they'll tilt. So the purpose of the overarm is to level them out, but also it acts as a trigger to tell the record player when the last record went. Feels like there's stuff on there. Wow. Well, you know, maybe there's something that just can't be restored for some reason, but hopefully that'll that'll fix itself up. Yeah, because I can't fix it. It'll fix itself up. So I just discovered a little adjusting screw here, probably adjusting the height of this when the mechanism is operating it. It may not be, it may be for other purposes. What is it for? Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It pushes this lever up and down, which is going against this guy here, which is being pushed up and down by the mechanism, by that ramp we saw underneath, which I haven't done any lubrication underneath yet. Wow. Okay, so I think we're done on the top now. Put this guy back in. So the trick is, you know, this piece has to fall into the track here, and it can be very challenging on some record players. In the end, what you do is you take a screwdriver or something, push this where you need it to be a little bit. This one just falls in nicely. Okay, put this on here. I guess we'll flip it over and do the lubrication underneath. Perfect. Survived another one. Lubrication underneath. So I have different kinds of lubrication needs in here. Some of the more extensive manuals will list 4 different kinds of oils to use. Use this here, use that there. Well, that probably is the best thing to do, but you can get away with not having 4 different kinds of oil and stuff like that. So we're looking at parts that are slipping over each other, like this. Parts that are in shafts and sleeves, like this. And then just this kind of schmozzle here, I don't know what to call it. Places we should not lubricate. This push rod here, this is part of that velocity sensor mechanism. This should not have lubrication on it. That feels just fine. Just about everything else can use a little dab. Anywhere there's surfaces contacting. Here. Looks like that should not get lubricated. There are some parts around the tone arm, it really shouldn't lubricate. I guess especially if they appear to be moving fine as they are, especially in this record player. Okay, so first order of business is to kind of clean this up a little bit and then start putting the stuff on. But it's break time for me right now. Well, I see it's been an hour since up to this point in the video. I've already done more work on it. I have video on it, but I think I'm going to post this first hour, or this whole thing's going to be a 2-hour video. And I happen to look outside, and it's beautiful outside, and that's where I want to be. So that's where I'm going to go. So I'm just going to chop the video off here and continue with it on tomorrow's posting. We'll get this all finished. Maybe that ball bearing will fall out overnight. Thanks for watching, and see you on the next video.